It was the first day of fall semester at Eastwood University, and I could barely wrap my head around the fact that I was standing in front of a campus so massive, so overwhelming. It made me feel like a tiny speck in the middle of a huge, bustling city. Growing up on a small farm in Nebraska, I was used to open fields, quiet streets, and the simple rhythm of farm life. But now, surrounded by skyscrapers, students hustling to class, and the constant hum of city traffic, everything felt completely foreign. I'd always dreamed of going to college. It wasn't just about getting a degree, it was the chance to break free from the bubble of my small town, to experience something beyond the familiar. My parents had put everything they had into making this possible for me, and here I was, a first-year student at a well-known university, ready to make my mark. My first class that morning was Literature 101, a massive lecture hall filled with rows of students scattered throughout. I grabbed a seat somewhere near the middle, unpacked my stuff, and tried to focus on the lecture slides. My heart was pounding with excitement and nerves, but I told myself to chill. I had made it this far. I belonged here. As the professor talked about the importance of reading critically, my mind began to wander. That's when I noticed him. A guy sitting a few rows ahead of me, his eyes flicking over toward me. At first, I thought nothing of it. People check each other out in class all the time. But after a while, I realized he wasn't just glancing around. He was straight up staring at me, his gaze lingering way too long to be casual. My stomach twisted. I tried to stay focused, but the whole thing made me uneasy. My breath quickened, but I forced myself to look at the lecture. I checked my phone when the professor turned to write something on the board, and I saw a message from my mom. "How's the first day, sweetie?" "Good," I texted back quickly, trying to shake off the weird feeling that someone was watching me. The next few days, I tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. College was huge, and people noticed each other. It wasn't a big deal. But this guy kept showing up everywhere. Every time I looked up, there he was, his eyes locked onto me. I'd try to avoid his stare, focus on my notes, the professor, or whatever, but no matter where I sat or how much I moved, his eyes were always on me. One afternoon, I had a few hours to kill before my next class, so I decided to grab a coffee at the campus cafe. I ordered my usual, a black coffee with a splash of cream, and found a quiet booth. For a moment, I let myself relax. The noise around me, the warm buzz of the cafe, the hum of conversation. It was all so different from the quiet of home, but it felt oddly comforting. I was about to crack open my textbook when I got that same weird feeling again. My eyes snapped to the door, and sure enough, there he was. The guy, standing by the entrance, staring at me, locked onto me like a laser beam. He didn't come over, but his gaze didn't budge. I quickly turned back to my book, trying to ignore the fact that my hands were shaking as I fumbled with the pages. My heart started racing again. Was anyone else seeing this? I looked around the room, but everyone seemed too absorbed in their own thing to notice. His stare felt like 100 pounds on my chest that I couldn't shake off. Things only got worse after that. He started sitting near me in every class. He'd hang around the door of the lecture hall after class, always watching me as I walked out. Even when I was walking to the library across campus, I'd spot him behind me, always staying just far enough to not make it obvious, but close enough that I knew he was there. I tried telling my roommate Clara, but she was too busy with her own stuff to take me seriously. She told me I wasn't used to the crowds and told me to relax. It's normal to be a little anxious, right? But I knew something wasn't right. He wasn't just staring, he was following me. One night, after a brutal day of back-to-back classes, I was walking to my dorm when I saw him again. He was standing in the shadows near the entrance to my building, just waiting, hovering, staring. My heart dropped to my stomach. I sped up my pace, but then he stepped out into the light, blocking my path. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice too calm for my liking. "I was wondering if we could talk." I stopped dead in my tracks. He knew my name? I hadn't told him my name. I was frozen. I don't know who you are," I said, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes, the kind of eyes that had other motives behind it. "I've seen you around. We're in the same class, you know." He took a step closer. I think we should get to know each other better. I felt like I might pass out. My body was screaming to run, but I forced myself to stand my ground. I don't want to talk to you, thanks. I have to go. For what felt like forever, he didn't move. I thought maybe he was going to grab me or something. But then, finally, he took a step back and shrugged. All right, Emma, if that's how you feel. I didn't wait around to hear anything else. I turned and sprinted into the building, my chest heaving, my heart pounding so loud I thought the whole campus could hear it. I locked the door behind me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't safe. That night, I called campus security. I gave them all the details. The guy, his behavior, the classes we shared. The next day, the officers met with me and said they were looking into it, but they needed more evidence before they could do anything. It wasn't much, but I felt like I had done the right thing. I knew it wasn't just my gut telling me something was wrong. It was the anxiety gnawing at me every time I saw him. The guy never showed up in any of my classes again. He disappeared as mysteriously as he had appeared. Did he even go to this school? Though I was still cautious, I felt a wave of relief. I had stood up for myself. I had taken control, and as the weeks passed, things started to feel a little more normal. The big city life felt a little less intimidating.